So we know the devil. We know the devil is the name of the game. This is the game's title screen, and as you can see, right out the gate, we know the devil is meant to be a spooky game about spookiness, and I love the comedy. So I know already what one of my favorite things is gonna be about this game. I can already tell. One thing I'm going to like a lot is that it uses photographs instead of just like backgrounds that are drawn or painted or photoshopped or whatever. It's cool. It's cool to use those things, but we see that in video games a lot. I don't see a ton of real life photography in video games. So let me talk about the photography for a second. I'm not sure what the rest of the game is gonna look like, but this title screen gives us a very like early 2000s Vice magazine editorial look, right? This looks like the kind of photograph one takes on film because film is the aesthetic they're looking for. It's got this kind of like flash photo from a viewfinder camera, right? You could take this with like, I don't know, like a Canonet or something, right? This could very easily be a photograph from a disposable camera. So it's an interesting choice. I wonder if the developers took these photos themselves or scoured the internet for them. I guess that's something the internet could tell us. But I think it's really cool to see that in a game. So what this is telling me, based on this photograph, right, is it's got this very lo-fi. You can see there's a ton of noise in this image. It's a super high ISO image. There's lots of noise, which gives it this kind of grainy look. You're often gonna see this kind of look in like found footage. It's intentionally unprofessional. Not the game itself, but the idea of the photograph, right? This is the kind of photograph that a person who does not know what ISO is or why they might choose to not use the flash. These are sort of quick taken photographs. I'm not sure what the imagery here is supposed to be conveying to us, which I think is the idea. I think it's supposed to give us a sense of uncertainty, a sense of like, what is this? Maybe it'll be contextualized later, maybe not. But combining the spooky music, which of course, as soon as I mention it, ends. Combining the spooky music with this kind of found photograph image of a belt indicates to me a kind of ominousness, right? Like this teaches us that the image that we are seeing is given a context by that music, right? A piece of art like this, a piece of interactive art, is created by merging a bunch of different things. So hearing this ominous music is very different than if we were hearing something else, right? The music gives tone to the photograph, which makes me think of abuse, possibly, as being the theme here. Suicide also. The belt takes on some ominous tones when separated from the pants or what have you, right? Like it's definitely out of context, and that's what makes it weird. I think that's something that we talk about a lot when we talk about post-apocalyptic stuff, right? But I think horror does it really well too. Horror, like comedy, is about presenting the unexpected. In comedy, when someone starts to tell a joke, you can't help but start thinking about what the punchline might be, and then when the punchline surprises you, then you laugh, right? You release the tension of the joke through laughter. That's kind of how like basic comedy works. Horror is similar in that sense. When it builds tension, it creates a sense of like what's happening, what's going on, and then releases that tension. And that's why we laugh sometimes when we get scared, right? A scream and a laugh aren't too different. And so what the game is doing here is building tension, right? It's saying, like, what is this out of context object? You know, we know that it's not going to be a punchline. We know that we're going to learn something startling or frightening. And yeah, this is a thing that you can twist as a storyteller. You can twist that unexpected because you don't know what's going to happen. And this is how comedy can become fright, and how fright can become comedy. You see it in Alien. Alien does this really well, right? The scene where Ripley is moving through the Nostromo, and we all know that there is an alien. Even Ripley knows there is an alien, right? And she's stalking the halls of the Nostromo, and the motion detector is beeping, and she's moving, and she comes into the cargo hold, and the motion detector is beeping louder and faster, and louder and faster, and we think that the alien is nearer to her, and she comes up to the cargo container, and she yanks it open, and Jonesy, the cat, jumps out. And that's very much the juxtaposition of the sort of horror, tension, comedy, that release, that laughter, that like, oh, it was just the cat, which often horror will then drop the real horror in on you after you've kind of laughed off the tension. That's sort of how it goes. So anyway, what I think the title screen is doing here is using the vaguely ominous subtext of an out-of-context item like the belt to let us frighten or make ourselves nervous, right? The idea here is that we're seeing this thing and we're supposed to guess. And you could see, like, my brain immediately goes to, well, if it's not holding up a pair of pants, what does a belt do? And so your mind goes to certain places. And that's what I think real tension and horror is. This is why I think role-playing games are so hard to do horror in, because if I am hinting at what might be scary, you probably, as a player of that game, have a better understanding of what it is. You can probably assume after the clues, you're like, oh, this is just an Umber Hulk. I know how to defeat them. But in a controlled media situation like this, we don't know what's coming necessarily, and so the title screen, I think this works. I think it's got an aesthetic. I'm not sure if the aesthetic matches or fits in with the rest of the game, but we'll see as we go. We'll see as we go. I love that it's photographed. Now let's talk about the other elements of the title screen. I will say something I don't like here. I think the thing to me that jarringly stands out as an aesthetic, I don't want to say a mistake, but as the thing that takes me out of that feeling is the selection screen. The title itself, which we'll talk about in a second, the sort of handcrafted in the sense of like we have this 90s photograph background kind of jam, all of that stuff fits, and then we have this very obvious you are playing a computer game font and selection screen. It's real hard to make interactive elements as artistically integrated as you do with the title, because the title's just a graphic, right? But the UI is not. It's jarring. I don't like it here. I feel like it semi-obscures the image in a way I don't like. I don't like a lot of bullshit on my title screens. I hate this font. This kind of pseudo-Helvetica, like, I don't know what it is. This sort of Times New Roman thing that's going on here. But it's one thing in a larger title. I would do away with this and just give me a title screen with no menu first, and then give me something else. But the font is terrible. It's too big. It really throws me off. Now, I do like the We Know the Devil. Some folks in chat have pointed out that it kind of looks like chalkboard drawing, but it also has this kind of like outside edge. It does, like the image behind it, it gives me the idea that it's supposed to be and we talk about this a lot. It's not skeuomorphic. There's another word for it, but it's supposed to look like I guess maybe it is skeuomorphic. It's supposed to look, I think, like a real object. It looks like someone has used the thick end of a piece of chalk. But these little scrapings, these extras, I'm not sure what that's meant to look like. But it does feel like something. It feels like, yeah, like it's been scratched into film, or it's chalk, or something like that. Yeah, so I like this. It's declarative, it's bold, it's strong. It's all caps, and it looks handcrafted. And I think that the title fits really nicely with this back image. It looks like it could be the title page of a zine. It fits it into a very particular aesthetic for me, which then I think that the title screen itself like really dramatically undermines, which is a shame, but that's where we're at. Keep in mind also what the title screen tells us about the UI of the rest of the game will be. So we're gonna have to keep an eye out for font choice. Are we gonna see more of this serif looking font as we go? Is this going to be our main title font, or are we going to see more of the hand-drawn font? I know that there are other graphic elements in the game that are going to come up, and I've seen, well, you'll see how they blend in. But that's something that I think is important about a title screen. You set the tone for the rest of the game, both in terms of overall aesthetic and then in UI elements. It's very little more jarring than a UI that's dramatically different from the front page of the game. The music itself, just before we move on and actually start up our game, the music itself, I think, is effective. It reminds me a little of like Tim Hecker or like a Brian Eno, but sort of toned down, like an ominous Brian Eno on a sad day. Music for Airports in Hell, but it's very subtle. It's very non-aggressive title music. It really, to me, feels like it's underpinning the visual elements of the game, which again, let's look as we play the game. Let's look at the interaction between music and graphic elements to impart the game's theme to us. I do have to say, what annoys me a little bit about it is that it's on a clear and obvious loop. That ending and restarting. But the problem is, I think with that, is that I'm interacting with this title screen for a lot longer than most people probably would. So it's not something necessarily I think the designers considered, right? It's a long loop, though it is a loop. So yeah, we know the devil. This is the title screen. Let's take a look at the game.